previously, but staff forms were sent to 455 staff members to determine their intent for the 2020-21 school year. 97% of the staff did respond to the form, with 4%, which is 18 staff members, indicating that they wouldn't return for the 2021 school year. It was an equal split, 9 each, between licensed staff and support staff. 7 of the licensed staff are not returning, are teachers, and at this time there have been, as I indicated at the work session the other night, no special education resignations or retirements, and then 6 of the support staff aren't returning, and those are paraprofessionals, 4 of which are in special ed. So we are going to have some paraprofessional positions to follow up on. But if we hold at that 4% turnover rate, that's pretty amazing, and really speaks volumes, I think, to your leadership as a school board and to the work that happens with our schools. We've been talking a little bit about upcoming work sessions, and I just wanted to put on your radar again. We are anticipating that in March we would have a work session on the equity policy, perhaps an equity statement, equity policy, a conversation about where we are working through the equity audit. In April, we are intending to bring forward a work session around standards-based grading. And in May, we are looking at the future of school calendars. And I think our questions that evening are going to revolve particularly around when should we make the calendar and for how many years should we make the calendar. Is it possible to do a 2-year calendar? Is that something you all have some interest in doing? So I did want to take just a second to talk about a couple of things that we're working on that are beyond sort of the highlights of the school. The first is around standards-based grading. As all of you are familiar at this point, we have been engaged in a pilot around standards-based grading. There continues to be some really great work around SBG at Mary Ellen Henderson and at the high school. However, we do know that this year was a pilot year, and we had a number of places where we were not as successful as we wanted to be. And so as a consequence of that, we have pulled back in the standards-based grading pilot in particularly a couple of math classes and in English classes, specifically students who are in 11th grade. I think one of the things we learned from the pilot very quickly was students who are coming towards the end of their high school career was not a good time for us to begin looking at a new process for grading. And these are some of those things that you learn in a pilot. And so I wanted to make sure that all of you knew that. Our future work of standards-based grading will be a topic of conversation in the April work session. But I also wanted to let the board know that over the next week or so, you can expect some sort of communique from Mr. Hills at the high school and perhaps Ms. Hardy at the middle school as well, around sort of the good and the bad and the ugly of standards-based grading as a pilot and what our learnings are from that. And I think one of the things that we know is anytime we try something new, being a reflective, thoughtful community of learners is really important to step back and say, what did we do? What didn't we do right? And how can we continue to build on our successes, but also take care of those things that were less than successful. One of the things that we also learned, I think in the pilot, just that we'll also share at the April work session, is around readiness for any initiative. There needs to be good, strong understanding of what the process is and really good, strong communication around what it's going to look like as it goes out. And that is an area that we will sort of spend some time working on moving forward. And so I just wanted to make sure the school board knew that that was happening. Another topic, and this specifically relates to our school calendar for next year. It was asked by one school board member, and perhaps it's important for all, I think it is important for all of you, is what is the process for any families that have already created plans for the first 2 weeks of school, knowing that our calendar changed in December. So there's a couple of things that I want to just call to remind the board. And the first is that December timeline is the same timeline we've always used for our adoption of the calendar. That being said, we still moved it back to 2 weeks before Labor Day, and some people have already made plans for those days. So there is a policy and a regulation currently in place. It's 9.22, and in 9.22, it's around prearranged absences. And this year, we are going to continue using the prearranged absence policy and regulation, and there are, and I'll share it with you. There is a form that is filled out, and one of the things that we're looking at doing this coming year because of the change is adapting the prearranged absence form that each of the schools has to be common, so that everybody's prearranged absence form looks the same. And there's one in particular that we're particularly fond of, and that's the prearranged absence form that Mary Ellen Henderson has, because it talks a little bit about sort of expectations for school and how important attendance is and the like. There is an additional and supplemental piece that goes with the high school process, or any students that are taking a high school class, and that is students who are asking for an extended absence would need to fill out, if it was after the first of the year, their class, their teacher, their present grade, work that's going to be missed, and then have their teacher sign off on that. That being said, and again, going back to knowing that there are a number of students who may miss the first week or two of school because of the change of calendar, again, we are updating that request for extended absence form. We are asking in there an additional question this year, affirming that your plans were made prior to the adoption of the calendar by the school board in December. And then they will send in the prearranged absence form. It's already automatically generated, so once you fill out the Google form, the school gets it. And then once that happens, and we're going to ask for those by March 31st. So the presumption is that anybody who's already made plans has already made those plans. So we're going to get the information out through the schools to submit your prearranged absence form by March 31st, so that we know what the universe is of students that we're going to be out that first week or two of school. And then we will support those families in enrollment, in the setup of their laptop, in access to Schoology, their schedule, any handouts that need to be given. Flyers, forms will be either given prior to the absence or subsequent to their return to school. So I wanted to make sure that the board knew that we are, through the principals, going to put something out that talks about the prearranged absence form and what our plans are to make sure that anyone who misses that first week or two of school because of pre-existing plans, we will work with those families on a case-by-case basis. And that, I believe, unless there are any questions, is it for my superintendent's matters.
Thank you, Dr. Noonan. Are there any questions? Mr. Redding.
So it's actually less a question and more of a comment. As Dr. Noonan knows, I was the school board member who asked the question about the end of the summer. I actually disagree quite strongly that the plans need to be before the announcement of the calendar change. And my reason is this. The school board in its wisdom decided to move the calendar up to start 2 weeks before. But that means that for this summer, obviously future summers are going to be the same amount of length, but instead of an 11-week summer, and sometimes we've had a 10-week summer, we'll have a 9-week summer. And with the full spectrum of things, I actually don't think it's that material whether or not a plan was made before the calendar announcement came out. It seems to me the question is the plan otherwise reasonable? There may be families that want to do college visits during that time that won't have had the opportunity because of other commitments earlier during the summer. And there are, of course, families that may not have made a specific detailed plan, but have a practice of taking vacation that particular one of those 2 weeks, I should say. So I appreciate the effort and the willingness to work with parents. I disagree, as I said, quite strongly that the plans were made or locked down in some way before the calendar announcement ought to be pivotal. It may be a factor, But my personal view is that it should not be a binary question where the plans must have been made. And I would certainly, if that is going to be the plan, want to have a work session and discuss whether the school board wants to set a policy to the contrary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reitinger. Are there any other comments or questions for Dr. Newton? Ms. Dimon?
We had talked about having a work session on technology, and I was wondering if that was on the radar for future.
It is on the radar for the future. It's not until probably after these.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Newton, comments? All right, seeing none at the moment, I will move on then. And I'm happy because we did achieve something I was hoping we would do, which is that Ms. Singhvi is here, and I would like to call on you first for student liaison and board comments, and then we'll go this way around the table. If you have anything that you'd like to share with us. All right, well, sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm glad that you're able to stay with us here. So, Mr. Webb. All right then. How about if we, Ms. Downs?
I've
Mr.
talked enough to speak.
Ms. Litton?
Sure. Well, I am soon to hand over the job of legislative liaison to Mr. Webb, but since I haven't quite handed it over yet, just a quick update because you guys all know they're sort of in the middle of session down in Richmond. So just a couple quick updates on our kind of legislative positions and where things stand. The couple of bills related to mandatory reporting of misdemeanors of school-based incidents and disorderly conduct, those are both actually moving through the House and Senate. So we think those actually look likely to pass this year. Let's see. Also, there is a bill related to solar. I know we added a solar provision in our agenda, and there's a bill that has moved through the House and is in Senate committee. So that's good news. That one's moving through. There's a few, as you guys know, there's new leadership, so there's a wide variety, I think, of new issues. There's some bills related to collective bargaining that if those move through, I think could eventually have an impact on us, a minimum wage bill. So a variety of things happening down there. You guys probably get Lila's reports, and I'm sure she'll continue to keep us updated, but happy to pass it on to Mr. Webb to give those in the future. Only other thing I'd mention for VSBA, the Northeast Regional Forum is coming up in, May 4th, for folks who want to attend that. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Litton. Ms. Dimon?
So I'm no longer a member of the Health and Wellness Committee, but I will let you know that we did 2 screenings of Finding Kind in January, and the committee plans a screening, 2 screenings of Like in March. It's about social media and like. So they'll both be at Mary Ellen Henderson. There will be one after school, and the kids can watch the film and take the late bus home. And Principal Hardy and I believe one of the counselors are going to be there for discussion. And then either the night or before or after, there will be a community showing of the film.
Thank you. Mr. Webb?
Just want to take a minute, more of a personal privilege kind of moment here. Tomorrow I will be attending the funeral service of pretty much one of my biggest mentors and supporters since I was 15 or 16 years old, Bill Thomas. Bill Thomas is a person who, when I was 15 years old, I met him via then Attorney General Mary Sue Terry. That was in '93 when she was campaigning for, well, actually hadn't even started the campaign, but was laying that foundation piece. She came down to Lunenburg County, where I grew up at, and I kind of like what a lot of these students here tonight were doing. I was that political junkie who